People are saying I've got to do this all again now. Fuck's sake, Tommy.
We'll carry on. Apologies, people. I'm a moron. I was just fucking getting everyone ready to go, and I forgot to hit live to go live. So, but we're on now. Hi, everyone. You happy, Emirate?
We have been on. We weren't late. We've been on 15 minutes. Well, 10 minutes for me.
I've been here the whole time, and I
just saw a message from Happy pop up, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then I realised the clock wasn't running in the top left-hand corner. So I've gone to the YouTube, and I'm gone, shit, it says it's scheduled. It doesn't say it's live. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, because everyone was popping on, and I was, oh, hey, how we doing, guys? And I just completely forgot we weren't even live.
Tom, don't invite us on and blame us for your mishaps.
It's all their fault.
Yeah, if we weren't popping on, Tom, you'd be talking to yourself there. You wouldn't even. You'd be doing a 2-hour show on your own.
He would. Tom, you need to recreate your rant that you've just had for the last 10, 15 minutes over Tottenham.
Just ranting at the arrogance of some of the fans of Tottenham and Chelsea and the like that we've won the Conference League, but fuck them. But it does give hope to other teams. I think it's a brilliant competition, I must say. And I'm like you, Nick. Actually, as it was going along, I was kind of, because of the teams we were playing, it wasn't as sexy as the Europa League last season. We weren't playing the likes of Sevilla and Lyon, and then we were playing, in the group stages, fucking Silkeborg and these teams, and even in knockout stage, you're playing Larnaca and teams like that. And
we played Anderlecht. I mean, Anderlecht aren't a complete mug team in the group stage.
A little bit of history.
They're all little, weren't they? All little teams. But it was a proper final. It was a proper final, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Nick,
we got a proper final.
Nick, you write these teams off, but all these teams you said, like Basel, Anderlecht.
I didn't know, but Basel were a decent team.
But those teams are in Europe every year. We're not. They are in Europe, whether you like it.
Why? In Europe every year.
It doesn't matter. So therefore,
why are they in Europe every year?
Because they're lazy shit.
They're playing fucking Belgium. That's why.
But the point is, Tom. The point is,
they're the Belgian.
It's not.
We need to do a Wimbledon,
Arsenal or something. You know what I mean?
Go over to France.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how they get there. They are more experienced in Europe than us. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, true.
I hope Villa do it this year. It'd be good for another English team to do it this year, as long as it ain't a London club. Because the thing I like about that, like I said earlier on, is it does give other clubs, because we've got a huge fan base, sleeping giant, and there's a lot of us. There's a lot of big clubs out there with underprivileged support. And it's going to give it can be a springboard. It can kickstart clubs as well, and I think it's good. It's good to share the success and give people that sort of feeling back, and that's what it gave us, and hopefully it gives a few other clubs that as well. It is a good competition, and I feel like that now. Now we've won it. Now it's
and you know what? The fact that we're in Europa League again next season. Now I suspect we'll get through the group. But even if the worst case scenario we finish third, we're back in the Conference League. We can go and try and win that back to back.
Yeah.
Is anybody concerned that there might be any repercussions from the crowd sort of shenanigans?
It'd be a big fine
and toothless.
It'd be a big fine and what, a game played behind closed doors.
I don't know, Tom. I'm not being funny. You say they're toothless. They are, except when it comes to English clubs that aren't top 6 clubs.
Yeah.
No, it'll have in UEFA at UEFA HQ. It's already blown over more or less.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things there, isn't there? Because obviously you've got the cup thing in the final.
We'll get the final
and the missile, and you've also got the. A really bad one was the AZ semi-final where they was talking about punishing the players that were sort of.
Well, wasn't there one last season? Well, the season before now, there was one when we was in the Europa League, wasn't there? There was some shenanigans going on with
UEFA Talk Tough.
Who was it?
One of the Belgian teams, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah. And we was under sort of like on the naughty step as a result of that. So we're given a warning about our conduct.
Yeah.
Somebody's having a fag.
So.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, that made me laugh. Sorry.
How was it for you?
Where's
back to the 80s.
Where's French Luke?
Luke's here. Hi, Luke.
David.
How are we doing?
I've got to be really quiet. I've got to be really quiet.
Yeah,
I'm asleep and
I
can't
I thought
speak
he was
really
fucking
loud.
Spanish.
Don't don't wait too long because Nick will end up making me start shouting and getting annoyed and getting loud. So I'll be quiet for now, but I'll soon start getting a bit airy and leery as it gets along. So.
I mean, I know you got no video, but if you're going to come on with audio, at least fucking talk, Luke. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I would do if you give me fucking 2 seconds to get a word in, you muppet. See, told you, already shouting. So it didn't take long, did it?
That's what he does. That's what he does, Luke.
Arsehole.
Does it all day long. I lose fares because of him, because he winds me up so much. I fucking miss someone's hand going up because I'm arguing with him on WhatsApp, probably.
Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Hurry up. That's 30 quid. Hurry up.
How do you tell the difference between someone doing that and doing that, John? Do you get confused sometimes, or?
Now, you know what the worst thing is? When some idiot, right, who does this with their watch? They exaggeratingly put their arm up to look at their watch. They go, like, all dramatic, and then you stop and you feel like a mug. Or they're at the bus stop and they put their hand up and you stop. They go, no, the bus.
That's these newfangled smartwatches that have got a screen off and they have to exaggerate an arm lift to make the screen come on, so that they can see what the time is.
No, so I mean, look, getting back to that final, I don't give a monkey's what any other team thinks. I don't want any other team in London to win sod all. I don't want their support. Nope. I don't give a monkey's. I'm happy we won it. I'm elated we won it. Now it's back to reality because people are already starting about who we're not going to buy.
It's more about who's going to be sold for me. This transfer window. That's what's worrying me.
Yeah, one's already gone.
Who's going to be sold?
What do you mean sold? Well, who's going to be sold? Who's going to be sold?
Go on.
Declan Rice.
Oh, but that we knew that. It's not a surprise, is it? I don't know why you're so like, oh, what about Rice?
Yeah, but I'm not. I'm not. I'm just saying that I'm more concerned with. I'm not worried about anything. We'll lose Declan Rice. You know. What do you mean? What are you not worried about?
I'm not worried. I'm not.
So
worried
okay. We've heard today. Scamacca. He's already agreed terms with Roma, but we're waiting until we find another striker. Wait a minute. Ings. They've already said they're looking to ship him out. Antonio, we know he's going to probably be out the door because of what happened before. No strikers. Took Moyes 18 months to find a replica for the striker that he got rid of last time. Why are you not worried?
Because I don't believe everything I read. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry writes. Every lazy journalist. Every journalist that every year comes out and links us with fucking Lukaku, Origi, and you hook, line, and sinker. I don't fall for anything.
Why?
What do you do? Okay, fair enough. You take a lot of these things with a pinch of salt, but
a little bit, yeah.
Who do you think will go? I mean, we know Lanzini's going, we know Rice is going, but other than that, who do you think is gone?
Vlasic.
I cannot. Well, yeah,
if we can sell him.
Yeah, we don't even count Vlasic. He wasn't even there last season. It's not like it doesn't even feel like.
Is that the number 10 that we bought for 30 million that we never played as a number 10?
That's the one.
Yeah.
But we shipped him out.
Great business.
I suppose the big one, Virgil, is look. We know Lanzini's going to go. That's fine. It's his time to leave.
Wants to go back to Argentina after playing outside of Argentina for the last 10 years. He wants to go back. Nick will put it down to game time and Moyes, but it's the fact that he wants to go back and has been saying it for over a year. He wants to go back to Argentina. He's played out of his homeland for 10 years.
You don't think it would have had any bearing that Thomas Souček, who passes, who's probably got less complete passes in 38 games than Manuel Lanzini has in 90 minutes? You don't think it's any bearing on the fact that he's been sat on the bench watching that fucking cart horse walk up and down the pitch?
No, because he's been saying it for a while now. Again, we knew we know it's been coming. None of the things that we're hearing or we're surmising or that have happened, i.e. Rice and Lanzini, none of them two are surprises. So I'm not going to get hysterical about that. The one that's
hysterical, but you can be a little bit upset and a little bit because he's a very special player and it's a shame he's going.
Mate, I am. Luke hit the nail on the head earlier about on his Twitter feed. I saw Luke when you said you're more upset about Lanzini.
Oh, I thought you meant he said something because I hadn't heard him yet. Luke, you there?
Luke, what did you say on Twitter about Lanzini? You're more upset about him?
I thought just about Lanzini. I just said I'm actually more upset about him going than I thought I would be.
So am I. Yeah.
Don't
be upset. Don't be upset. What do you expect?
No, but
what do you expect? He wanted to go home.
Oh my god! You automatically
don't believe what you read. I know West Ham have released it, but don't believe it, Luke.
You automatically put a negative spin on it, Nick. He wants to go home. The one that pisses me off is Scamacca because if we lose him, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
We are losing him.
Tommy,
Okay,
boys, Tommy, just to reiterate, and to people watching this as well, both Nick and Virgil have their own YouTube channel, and they could be doing this in their own time, but the network would be very kind and letting them have this airtime. So Tommy, if you want to, make the use of the other 3 fucking guests in this video so they can talk and not listen to the same old bullshit that Nick and Virgil.
Well, I've just been listening to you for the last 20 seconds saying nothing, Luke.
I've spoken to the people, and I've spoken to Tommy, the man who has set this video up for the network. But then we've got 2 claret and boozers on who think they own a fucking channel. Let someone else fucking speak. Tommy's beard's grown in the last 3 minutes that you were arguing, for God's
sake. All right, Luke. Point
I shaved before the show.
Did you?
He had hair as well on his head.
Yeah.
Go on.
Have at it, son.
There you go, Luke. Go on.
Right, the floor is yours, Luke. Tell us
Come on,
about
Luke.
your love of Manuel Lanzini. I'm sure we all feel the same way.
I'm going to wait for Nick to butt in at some point, but at the moment, it's if we must speak about this particular subject, which I'm going to quite glad we are actually. Fucking hell, it's an X Factor, mate. Here we go. It's going to be a long one, this one.
Go on, mate. Sorry.
No, it's all right. He always wanted to go back at some point and play for River Plate. So if he's taking a decision to leave himself, then I can't really blame him. And I wish him all the best. If it's something where he's gone, Moyes is still at the club, I ain't going to be getting the game time that maybe I'm going to need. The most surprising one, actually, this week has been linked with Villa and Brighton, which I didn't really think would happen. But clearly it shows that if it is true, I know Virgil's shaking his head right now, but if it is true that, other clubs who are managed by decent managers who, could play decent football are going, this kid's got something about him still, he's not finished yet, then that maybe, says more about them than it does about us. But it's sad because he could have done a role in the centre midfield role for me. You could have had, I know we had an argument about it last week or the other week or some other video, but I've said about Downs maybe next season coming in, and you could, if Bryce is going to go, you could have Downs, Lanzini in the middle, Downs winning the ball and Lanzini creating things in the middle. But alas, it's gone, and the time he did spend at the club, I think the last 2 years he got very little appearances, but the time he did play, he played well. The other thing is, people were saying that he hasn't been the same since the injury. I think maybe he lost a bit of pace, but he still had the skill and and the tricks about him, and he still looked like a capable player in the midfield. Just can't do all the running around that Moyes wants him to do, as he does every single player in that team. So gutted to see him go. Scored a load of goals, and I wish him the best. But yeah, I'm glad to see him go, to be fair.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at how little game time he got last season, actually, because we're not talking about a footballer who's ready to retire. I mean, what is he? Is he 29? 29, 30. He's still a beautiful footballer, and I was really surprised, particularly that we're in Europe again. To me, I think he was underutilized last season.
Well, he barely got used after his missus said a few words about David Moyes. He barely played after that. Well, he didn't, did he?
No, he didn't. No, you're right. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true.
Is he that fucking sad?
Of course he is. You keep telling us he is.
But that is sad because Lanzini, I believe, was one of his favourites when he came in. He used him a lot in the first relegations. He was one of his favourites. He made he was. That's I think. Do you know when he? To an extent, I don't really feel sorry for footballers. I think they're rich arseholes at the best of times. But especially shit goalkeepers like you.
When he got injured, shut up. When he got injured just before the World Cup in 2018, and he was apparently very, very pally with Messi, who as soon as they met up with each other at the camp, they were getting on the house on fire, and he was telling the manager of Argentina, this guy's got to play because he's got something about him. And then it was like a day or a week before Argentina's first game or something like that, and he said he'd done it. Like he wasn't. I don't think it was reported as bad as it actually was at the time. I think it was like, he's got an injury. It was like, oh, that's a bit gutting. Then we heard how bad it was, and we were like, oh shit, this is a bad one. And I just feel like footballers got short careers. They could probably get 2-3 World Cups at the most if they're decent players. Yeah. To miss out at that time, it's a shame for him because he's sorry.
It is a shame. Sorry, mate. Can I just call out Peter Jones in the chat just quickly? He's my #1 fan. Can't take any more of him. See you some other time. Whenever I appear on a show, he does this, but then he comments about half an hour later, I know you're still watching, Peter. I know.
Tommy, be careful. Be careful. This is our channel. We're going to be losing viewers. The views are going to drop. The subscribers are going to.
I'll tell you what. That's all right. It's fine. He'll be fine. He needs to learn to take a lot of what Nick says with a pinch of salt. You know, he does like to ruffle a few feathers, Nick, but he's not always being serious. So.
PR manager over here.
Yeah, but actually, while we're on the midfield, obviously that's going to be a very important kind of part of the team this summer, because obviously with Declan Rice going, we don't know what the situation is going to be with Souček next season. Is he still going to be a Moyes favourite, or are we going to completely rejig the midfield and build it around Paqueta, which is what we should be doing? Obviously, we're going to have to buy a replacement for Rice, but my worry is that we're linked with someone like James Ward-Prowse. Now, I like James Ward-Prowse as a player. I think he'd be a good player for us. I think he'd be a good addition to the team, but not if he's coming in for Rice. We can't have
50 million for a 29-year-old.
Yeah, that would be crazy. Whatever, outside of the valuation, just as a footballer, let's say if he is high on our list of targets for central midfield, I do not want to see a midfield of Ward-Prowse, Paqueta, and Souček. If Ward-Prowse is coming in, it has to be to replace Souček. And then we also buy a replacement for Rice as a proper DM who would allow Paqueta and Ward-Prowse to go do what they do. But there's no point in bringing in Ward-Prowse, in my opinion, if Souček's going to still be part of that midfield. So that's my worry, is that the midfield will be out of whack.
But Tommy, sorry to interject. If you bring, because I'm going to say this now about James Ward-Prowse, remove his set pieces, you've got a very normal footballer. He hasn't got loads of pace. He's an all right box to box. I don't think he's amazing in any way in open play. I think he's all right. Set pieces are amazing. So I suppose if you're going to become set piece FC with him there, which is I suppose what you would bring him in for, then you probably would want to keep Souček in the team for that reason, because he's a threat in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just think if we're going to replace Rice, we've got to get a top quality DM in there. I agree. I actually don't want us to replace Rice with a box-to-box player. I think in my ideal world, we would bring in someone who could replace Souček, who would be kind of box-to-box, and him and Paqueta can go do what they do, and then Rice's replacement would be, for example, let's say we did a deal with City for Rice plus Calvin Phillips. Phillips would go and sit. You protect the back four. That's your job. You sit. You don't need to be particularly going beyond the halfway line, and we let Paqueta and whoever else we've bought in that midfield, whoever it is, to go and do the kind of offensive stuff. I think that would be a better balance for me. But of course, I think the expectation is that Souček is going to start every bloody game next season.
Would you not rather? I mean, to everyone on the panel, like Gatesy, would you rather? Like Trodger's mentioned players like Musa and players like that from Valencia. Would you not rather us just take a slightly different route rather than chasing the same fucking faces all the time? For Calvin Phillips, James Ward-Prowse, blah blah blah. I'd rather. These players have already said no to us once. Calvin Phillips also, they've tried to, because Man City put a 70 or 80 million bid plus Calvin Phillips in, and Phillips said no, he don't want to come to us. So
yeah, I completely agree. I just threw Phillips out there as an example of a sitting DM.
But what? Yeah, I agree with you. But I would like to see us, and this is why I wanted a director of football in. I would just like to have seen us do something a little bit different. Go and get less obvious players in.
We've already got one anyway. But then that's been already said and done. So I'm going to leave it there.
What's that?
Well, my name. Change my name now to highlight exactly what I think. So there you go. Yeah, there you go. I'm not saying anything. I said it all last week. There's a video on YouTube, probably it's called the archives. So I won't go over it again.
What do you think? What do you think, Gatesy? Go on.
What about the players that we've been linked with?
About how you'd like us to restructure the midfield, and would it include Souček, or would you just restructure the midfield?
If I was restructuring it, no, but it's not me that's going to be restructuring it. So the guy that will be is.
Well, David Moyes isn't here, so I can't ask him what he wants to do.
No, I know, but I suspect that whatever we all want, he will be here. But I mean, I just want to see us. I mean, James Ward-Prowse, what is he, 28, 29?
29 going on 30.
Going on 29, is he?
And we're losing a 24-year-old midfielder. So the age profile's going up, not down. And we're already one of the oldest squads in the Premier League. Can we get some younger players in, please, that we might at least have some sort of resale value? I mean, you buy James Ward-Prowse. I mean, if we buy him for 50 million, There is no resale value there at all. Can we sort of get a few sort of like younger players in, maybe a 22, 23-year-old, where maybe we can sort of like get the best out of them and sort of like move them on
do
Gatesy, profit later on instead of keep losing money?
Yeah, Gatesy, it doesn't have to be midfielder, but is there one particular realistic player that would be your kind of dream signing this summer? I've got one, a player I fucking love, and I think there's a lad, Bristol City midfielder, Alex Scott.
Yeah, good
he's 19, 20. I don't know if he's turned 20 yet, but he's a young lad. He's got absolute bags of ability. He's basically the next James Maddison, in my opinion. I think he's going to be that good. He's already really good. Technically, just absolutely brilliant. Skips past players that are not there. Just a really exciting young player. Wouldn't cost the earth. We get him for
wonderful player, Tommy. But look, I'm sorry to bring this back to David Moyes, but if Moyes signs a 19-year-old player from the Championship, will he use him? Well, he didn't use Flynn Downs, did he?
No, exactly.
I wouldn't expect Moyes to chuck him in first game and give him 90 minutes. But he's the kind of player. To be honest, I don't think Moyes is going to be here too much longer. If I'm completely honest, I think Moyes' best case scenario is that he walks away at the end of next season. That's the longest I think Moyes would probably be here, unless he does a stunning job next season.
Yeah.
Which I don't expect. But I think Scott is good enough that he could force his way in.
Yeah, but the trouble is, if Moyes has only got a year left on his contract and there's some sort of gentleman's agreement in place that he's going to go at the end of the season, it's a problem within itself because you can't buy for the long term because a new manager comes in and it all starts again. And the problem is, as you've seen with a lot of the players that Moyes has bought in the summer, in January with Ings, he doesn't really have a mantra. He hasn't really got an ideology. He hasn't really got foresight. And like I've said a million times before, there's no foresight at the top of the club and it filters down. I agree with Luke. I think Flynn Downs is a lot of West Ham fans are almost poo-pooing him a little bit without really seeing anything about him. In the games I've seen him, I think he's done well. When he was played as a number 10 and ridiculous things out of position again, he started to look shaky. He started to look like, he looked a bit headless chicken. But you're bringing a kid in from the Championship. You're not really giving him his berth in the team in his ideal position, and then you're asking him to play ridiculous positions in the top league.
But do you think you've seen enough hand on heart to lose Declan Rice from central midfield and fill it with Flynn Downs? Have you seen enough? No, Nick,
you can
I'm
never.
Asking you.
Because you can never replace Declan Rice, mate. Declan Rice is world class.
But I'm talking about the team dynamic. Will that work? Remove Rice, put Flynn Downs in. Will we be all right?
If the rest of the midfield is compensated with it,
yes.
Well, with Paqueta and Souček next to him, will Flynn Downs basically replace?
No, you take Souček out.
You need two midfielders. You need to replace Souček. That's the problem.
You need one holding midfielder that does the clearing up and sets the midfielders up with the ball.
I completely agree.
You need the other player. You need the other second player next to him to be bringing the ball forward. The last player in that triangle then tries to set up the attack in the last third, say like a number 10, Ben Rama going through to the striker. So basically, you have that process with the ball winner, who all people can say backwards and forwards and sideways passing. That is practically their job.
No. If you've got a holding midfielder
Noble done it for 18 years. You know what I mean? It's not.
But Luke, if it all pivots on Souček being removed from the team with David Moyes as manager, will Souček be removed from the team?
No, and that's the problem. So
it's a moot point. You can't use Flynn Downs. We need someone else.
No, the way he's used Souček this season, as in you're my man, I trust you, even though he's a fucking passenger in most games and can't pass the ball to save his life. If you're going to give Souček that role rather than the role he's better at, which is box to box, win the ball, get in the box, spread, blah 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 blah. But if you're asking Souček to be a technical player who can win the ball and pass other players, which he's wanted him to do, but he hasn't been capable of doing it all season, then you put Downs in because Downs will do that job better than Souček does it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. He won't do it. So, like you said, it is a moot point. I totally agree, and it's fucking frustrating. That's why I'm pushing that you know, in my opinion,
I would have liked to have seen Flynn Downs play alongside Rice last season.
I was kind of saying that, you know, if he's not good enough, he's not good enough. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'd like to give him, you know, when he brought Bowen in from the Championship, when he brought Bowen in from the Championship, he gave Bowen about 10 games, and he after that he got used to the pace of the Premier League, and he was a good player anyway. But Downs hasn't even been given that. He's been given a few Conference League games, and then maybe a minute at the end of a Premier League game we're already losing or something like that, and people go, oh, he's a backwards and sideways. For him to be a backward and sideways passer, to even get that chance in the Premier League would be amazing. He hasn't even got that chance at the moment.
Can I ask one question quickly, because we've been having a debate on WhatsApp, right, about the transfer window this year. No. It's just about the if you go back to the last transfer window and the window before and the window before that, there was a lot of excitement. You know, as there always is, you get all this excitement about, you know, new players coming in. I think after the last one, after the last few, well, obviously the January one was awful. Nothing happened, and the last one where it felt like the Harlem Globetrotters had come in, and the way that and the way that it worked. The way I feel now, I don't have any excitement about the transfer window anymore. You couldn't even, no matter who we're linked with, it doesn't really make me, you know, to the point where, like on our channel last year, we was constantly churning out transfer links and this, that, the other. But I saw, but it's sparse. It's like I saw Russ put one out earlier on, you know, and on the thumbnail he's got a question mark over a player. You click on it and it's Divock Origi.
Yeah, same old.
But it's the same old. It's the same links. Are anyone, like in the chat as well? Tommy, are you excited about the transfer window now? Have you got the same level of excitement?
No, not particularly. See, the issue I'm having is that we're going to retain David Moyes, and we're going to give him however much money it's going to be, the Declan Rice money plus whatever was already in the kitty. It will be another substantial amount of money, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then not renew his contract, and either sack him partway through the season if it's gone tits up, or let him walk at the end of the season, having given him another transfer window, knowing he's not going to be around probably beyond this season. And I don't understand that from a strategic point of view. If you're going to back the manager who's got 1 year left in his contract and bring in more of his players, then you may as well extend his contract and say, right, well, if we're going to fill the squad with your players, you may as well be around. Just strategically, it's completely out of whack for me, which I don't understand. It makes no sense. And then we're bringing in a director of football who's supposed to be dealing with kind of identifying players and recruitment and all this stuff, while we have a manager here who has the final say on all transfers, who could turn around and reject every player if he wanted to that was presented to him. It just makes no sense to run a club that way to me. And, you know, it's kind of shambolic.
What striker do you dislike
Welcome
enough
to West Ham.
What striker? Yeah, what striker do you dislike enough to want to bring into West Ham so that Moyes can ruin him? Who do you reckon?
Harry Kane.
Harry Kane, yeah, Callum Wilson, maybe.
Harry Kane.
Oh, Callum Wilson.
Yeah, Harry Kane becoming suicidal because he hasn't scored a goal at Christmas time. You know, that might work.
Yeah, this season is a massive. I think we use the transition period term quite a lot, but when you consider the fact that you've got our main player being sold to the highest bidder at some point, then you've got Mark Noble, who's meant to be a sort of director of football in name only. No one really knows what his actual job role is. He just sort of wanders about going on. Yeah,
he's first team player hugger. That's his job.
He's not director of football. He's not director of football, though, is he?
No, he's not. No, he's a
sporting director. That's a different title.
Yeah. And then they'll change it over. They'll change the name when they hire someone and keep him in a different role. But then you've got Moyes, who, in my opinion,
club ambassador. That's what he is.
Moyes, in my opinion, he's got till October. And the only reason why he kept his job in the first place this season was because the Conference League was going so well for him. That was his only saving grace. So I'll give him till October. I think the club will as well, unless something goes drastically wrong. But then you've got this whole thing of going, well, what's the new sporting director, whatever you want to call it, going to walk in and go, right, who's this bloke? Oh, this is Mark. He's been here for 50 years. Feels like anyway. He's around because he knows the club. And then they're going to go, well, I don't need him here. I'm doing my things there. this whole thing is like, it's like you say, Tommy, it's this, we're almost used to this at West Ham. We're used to it being such a shambles that it's like, oh, something else is going to go wrong.
It's jobs for the mates, isn't it?
Yeah,
West Ham.
and as long as that works out, and as long as everyone gets on with each other, that's fine. I mean, we have just wanted a European trophy, so I guess I've got to keep my mouth shut to an extent. But this season is so much of, right, our main players going, we've got to get a new sporting director in, the managers who no one is not a majority in favour. Not everyone wants him to be at the club still. There's a lot of fans that don't particularly trust him in if he has just won a European trophy for us. We're all not sure how that's going to go next season. The players we're buying are old knit. They're not new players from an up and coming league we've never heard of, or not been scouted properly or whatever. So this season just seems like we've gone from the height of winning a European trophy, and we're thinking like, right, this is the start now. This is the start of us going to enjoy trying to go for trophies. At least we're going to enjoy another season of Europe. The club may be going somewhere now. We can use this foundation to build upon it. And then almost a week later, it's like, or more than a week later, sorry, it's like, oh, hold on, what direction again is the club going to go in? And it's never a dull moment supporting West Ham. I just wish it was a bit easier to follow, because this is going to be potentially a nosedive season for us if you don't get it right.
Gatesy, what do you think of this kind of technical director coming in?
I'll be honest, mate. I've not really sort of kept too much of an eye on it at the minute. I'm afraid I'm going to have to bail. I've got to disappear, boys. Sorry, it's just one of those things. So
no worries, Gatesy.
Lovely to see you guys. Sorry, I've got to bail.
Cheers,
I mean, to be fair, right, I did sort of like turn up 10-15 minutes before you actually hit record. In fairness, that's another story. Guys, lovely to see you. I'll speak to you soon.
No worries, Rob. Cheers,
mate.
Bye now.
Right.
Well, I suppose I'll put it to you, Verge.
If he's there.
Oh, he's gone for a dump or something, is he?
Yes.
But what do you make of this setup, Nick? Because it's a strange one to me. We know that David Moyes likes to have control over signings. And now we've brought in this technical director / sporting director. It's the same role, essentially.
Yeah. What do you mean? In charge
of identifying and recruiting staff, general staff.
Who are you talking
players.
about there, though? You're talking about Noble as being that character? Because that isn't Noble. That never has been Noble's job.
But I'm talking about this new guy that supposedly is coming in.
Mate, that ain't going to happen. That's just fucking... I think Sullivan's using that as a threat to Moyes. If that was going to happen, then the sporting director or the technical director or whatever you want to call it, director of football, would be the first thing that would have been done. And there is no way, no director of football worth their salt, especially the guy that we've been linked with, real top level guy. You bring him in, first of all, you don't start making chops and changes to your squad. You don't let players go. You don't buy players. You bring him in and you sit him down. You say, this is what we want to do. And you let him run with it. It looks like we're going to start doing business, and then what? Try and bring the director of football in halfway through? I mean, what the fuck's that all about? That's all I asked about face. I'm massively in favour of a director of football. David Moyes needs a boss. He needs someone to answer to. That isn't David Sullivan, because David Sullivan isn't a football man. Moyes needs someone to challenge him. He does. He absolutely does. And the other thing that I said the other day as well, we said it on the on our show on Sunday or on Monday, and that was the coaching staff, the coaching setup. We know that when David Moyes came in, a lot of the early success, you could probably attribute that to Alan Irvine, and that's not a slight on David Moyes. Every manager has got good people working with them, but I think maybe the coaching staff need to change as well. But again, you need a director of football sitting over the top of that. You need someone to piece all this together. David Moyes, one man like David Moyes can't run that team and do everything himself like he wants to, because you just end up doing a load of things not very fucking well. That's what happens. You just need a guy sitting at the top of that chain with the pedigree, to build it all, and then David Moyes can concentrate on what he does, running that team. And it's as simple as that. Whether or not he would want to exist in that environment, I don't think he would.
Yeah, what do you make of it, Verge? Like, it was a strange one to me, bringing in a kind of technical director, given that Moyes demands essentially full control over signings. He brought in Rob Newman, but that's his mate, and essentially Rob Newman was working for David Moyes.
Exactly.
So it didn't threaten Moyes' position or his authority. Presumably, bringing in this technical director would do that, and it seems a strange bedfellows. That something that you wouldn't expect Moyes to ever agree with.
Well, no, and if you believe everything you hear, he wasn't overawed with Noble being brought back. He referred to him as, what did he refer to him as? The understudy, or something like that.
Called him an apprentice, didn't he?
An apprentice, that was it.
Yeah.
I just think a lot of it is all talk, and I truly don't ever. If you think about it, Sullivan's a control freak, and in some ways, it would seem from the outset. And I'm not slagging off Moyes. He won us a European trophy, and it's only 10 days ago. And John Murdoch in the chat is right. It was only 10 days ago won a European trophy. I get that, but this is my fear, and it's already materialising. Is that this is why I would have loved Moyes to have won the trophy and walked away, because now he's on a hide into nothing. Because my biggest fear is for him to lose his job 2 months, 3 months into the season, and we're back to square one. We've had the wrong players in or no players at all. You got to try and find a new manager hastily. I just think he should have left at the top. You know,
it ain't going to get better for him, John, is it?
No,
it's not going to get better. It's not going to get better.
What's that, Luke?
No, so same here. I agree with you. He should have gone out at the top. It's not getting any better.
And that's not. Look, I'm not as vividly Moyes out as Nick, for example. Not being horrible, Nick, but I've supported him as long as I could.
Yeah.
I just think that as a manager, you got to know when the time is right, and I think he's tightening the noose around his own neck, because we are in a situation now where you can easily fall from the top, and he's in a dangerous predicament now of being sacked 2 or 3 months into the season or before Christmas, and everything he's done before is forgotten, and that is my concern. It's not. I'm not saying protect your legacy, because people will say what legacy, but it is a legacy.
He has got a legacy now.
No, I know. But my argument, Nick, even before we won this European trophy, I used to say, and people used to scoff at me when I used to say, he gave us relative success by our standards. He did, whether you like it or not, with the positions we finished in the league and the way we got to the Europa League semi-final. I know we went out with a whimper to some extent, but I think now he's put himself in an awkward position. And I would have loved him to have gone out at the top. And I just think, to me, Sullivan and Moyes, I don't think they work well together. I think they are both control freaks to some extent in different aspects.
I'll be honest with you. I must admit, I personally think that on one side, you've got Moyes possibly being a bit either naive or a bit believing his own self-importance that if I can win this trophy, I can win another trophy as well. Which, okay, last season we got to the semi-final of the Europa League and whatever, but at the same time, for him to improve overall on this season would be very difficult. Now, for me personally, the way it looks like is, if I'm honest, I think it's laziness on Sullivan's behalf. I think Sullivan would probably think it's an easy excuse to keep him on, because I don't have to look for a new manager to hire. So he'll keep him on and go, right, I'll tell you you got nothing's going to change. You're going to roll the roost. You've just won as a trophy, so it's easy for me not to get rid of you. And I don't know what part of Moyes really. Look, if I'm saying this now, if this season's an immaculate success, which is very unlikely in my opinion, but if it is, then fair enough. But I really don't know how he could look himself in the mirror and go, I can improve on this. Bearing in mind, it's not his first season. It's been a two and a half seasons previous to that. And how he's going to go. I'm interested now because realistically, in football terms, how long managers last average at a club, I'm really interested into how Moyes thinks he can improve on what he's achieved now, because I don't see him. I don't know what he thinks he can do. The thing, bringing players in wise, formation wise, because he said in an interview in the podcast with the CEO guy, he said, I'm trying to change the ethos of the club, and I'm not sure the West Ham fans are going to like that. And I'm like, well, it depends what you're changing it to, because if you're thinking to yourself that I'm going to scrape through by getting a European trophy, which really was only tested from the semi-finals onwards, if we're going to really be realistic about it, then great, fantastic.
It's one fucking game that was one of the best moments of our lives, and we will always be thankful for it. But the last 18 months, when you've been playing at the highest level, which is in the league, we've been shit.
It's not just been shit. It's just been the whole thing has been shit. The results, the performance, the tactics, the formation. It doesn't work for you. It's funny. There was a comment that I think someone was talking about a few minutes ago, which said our window's been really good. And I think the window was, but it took us about 6 to 8 months to get most of our decent players running. Our main record signing striker can't even, get a trust in the manager. We've had to go back to what we knew would be Antonio up front. So that, Kerr's had one good game in about 10. When you think about it, overall, he's not been the most trusted of defenders. Gaird's probably been the mainstay in the back, fair enough, but he's still a 50-50 defender. You've got Paqueta, who's taken probably the best part of a season with injuries as well to try and really show what he can do for us. And I know that signings take time, but I'm not being funny. If you look at most other Premier League clubs, their signings don't take that long to settle.
I think Nigel simplified this for us the other day though when we were talking about this. When we were talking about will David Moyes, this was before it was announced, and he said, look, unless David Moyes wants to retire from football, he's going to stay at West Ham if the option's still there. He said because because what he said was because even as well as what he's done at West Ham, he ain't going to go anywhere any better than West Ham. He's not. And I said this the other day, and he's not. He ain't going to get a better club than West Ham. Luke. No, he ain't going to.
No, what I'm saying is that people will look at they won't look at the season. They won't look at what his losses. They won't look at like the media have been doing. The media have been telling West Ham all the time, be careful what you wish for, because if this bloke is doing it isn't true, but that's the way they've been playing it, right?
Luke, he will not get. He will never ever get a top job again. He won't. What he will become. He will become the manager that becomes in demand at the second part of a season when everyone's losing. They're down the bottom. They're losing their manager, and they look at someone who can come in and change their fortunes. I think he's moved into that spectrum.
I actually would agree to an extent, but now that he's won this trophy and got us Europe twice, this is what certain clubs will look at. They won't look at the fact that we've been shit and our performance.
So what top club above us, bigger than us, would he go to?
I don't know, but the way the clubs will look at the way that other clubs will look at him wrongly, in my opinion, and with a false narrative, will look at him and go, "Oh, he's just won West Ham their first trophy in 43 years. He must have something about him." And no, I don't. All I'm saying is now that the way the media have played it, the way that most teams look at managers, right? They'll go, West Ham haven't won a trophy, never won a European trophy, right? Well, I'm talking. If you take a 10th place club to a 6th place club around that bracket, right? They'll look at him saving us from relegation, giving us a 6th place finish next season, giving us a 7th place finish season after that. Okay, we thought relegation, but he's still
what, Luke? I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, Luke, and I understand your reasoning.
Yeah.
I just think those other clubs that potentially we're talking about do not have the footballing ethos that Sullivan has. Villa do not have the footballing ethos to hire David Moyes, for example. Wolves do not have the footballing ethos to hire somebody like David Moyes. Brentford do not have the footballing ethos to hire somebody like David Moyes. They just won't tolerate that kind of football.
Tommy, do you know? I don't think Celtic would have had him back because Celtic pissed that league playing lovely football with good managers. I don't think they need to play Moyes ball. They enjoy watching good football.
I was thinking that as well, to be fair.
I don't think he's a good fit for them. I don't think he's a good fit for them. So John, what do you think, John? Do you think he could get a better job than West Ham, Moyes?
No, I mean, I understand what Luke's saying on his CV. A European trophy looks fantastic on his CV, but I think that Moyes, he is to some extent the last of a dying breed in so much as, I know he's a lot younger than them, but, he's on a par. Look, we don't really play any different. We don't really play any different to when we used to watch him manage Everton 15 years ago.
Sorry, can I just to reiterate what I was trying to get at, because I don't know if I really worded it very well. But what I was trying to say is that when I've spoken to non-West Ham fans and they've spoken about David Moyes, and I've said to them, I want him gone. They look at me like I've just slapped them in the face with my
no, you're right.
Going, why would you get rid of him? He's given you 2 seasons of Europe. He's just won you a trophy. Why would you? And they'll explain to them. They go, it's too much for them to get into because they don't know the ins and the outs of it. But I just wanted to say that.
Did you ask them if they wanted him at their club as manager?
Actually, it's a good, I should have said that. Actually, I should have said that.
That's a good point. I think Luke, I've had a few conversations with non-West Ham fans.
Sorry.
No, that's all right, mate. I've had a few conversations like that with non-West Ham fans, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that other teams just look at it and go, you should be over the moon. You've won a trophy. You ain't won nothing
from the
for
outside.
years.
Yeah,
they're just looking at it from the winning of the trophy situation. Like you said about Moyes, it looks good on his CV.
Yeah, well, it looks that way if you don't dig beneath the surface.
That's what I'm saying. But that's most people won't.
If you can't see the roots.
Yeah, no. If you don't watch us week in, week out, then you probably think you've won a European trophy. What you're moaning about, but I just think the obvious problem this season is that not only has Moyes got to regalvanise a lot of players who don't fit his system or try and fit them into his system or whatever you want to call it.
That's what Moyes is going to be saying to us after every shit performance and result. He's going to be trotting that out. What you're saying there, John. Yeah,
he says it already.
The biggest thing we're going to suffer now is the obvious, is the losing of Rice, because Rice is a catalyst for our team on the pitch. He's a fantastic captain. He brings the team together. He's got a fantastic personality on and off the pitch. That the loss of him, as we all know, is going to be massive and will magnify the problems we have even more so unless we get players in of that ilk, and we're not going to. We cannot attract a player that will be anywhere near Declan Rice's ability. We don't attract Paqueta, unusual, but we very rarely attract and buy already world-class players. We make world-class players in the main, right? So the only way we do that is by bringing in young players or players from the Championship. We're not going to be able to go out and buy these players. I mean, James Ward-Prowse, I don't think he's as bad as you think. I just think his price tag is ridiculous, but that's what Southampton want for him.
I'm really worried about the striker situation, John, and you touched on this before with Scamacca, because this is something...
Before you get into it, Nick, my worry is that we never identify and buy Moyes' Caicedo. We just don't do it. We don't unearth gems.
This is what I was, just to John Murdoch, that comment in a minute ago saying, who do you want to manage us? Right. I would like to have this conversation actually with someone like a Brighton fan or an Aston Villa fan, because did they think that they were going to get in their manager? I can't remember his name now. Emery. Yeah, right. Did they think they were going to get him after they got Gerrard in? Did Brighton fans know who De Zerbi was before he turned around and managed them? Fans don't particularly know what managers are coming in and turn their fortunes around. They would I'd like Guardiola at West Ham, but I'm never going to get him. And it's like I wanted Will Steele from the French league. The funny thing about fans is we're not always right. Since I wanted Will Steele, his form with Reims has gone right down. So it's kind of been egg in my face because I've probably gone for the wrong guy. And it's like sometimes you can be wrong, but I don't want to make a decision. I want the club to tell me we're going to get rid of Moyes and we're going to bring in X, Y, and Z, because they are going to take this club to a new thing. They won't do it, but
look, with all due respect, the reason the Brighton things work so well, when they lost Potter, people feared for Brighton, right? But this geezer's come in, he's took them to another level, above what already Potter did, because the club employing him have told him, they've identified him. They say, this is what we want. This is what we do. They've told the manager, this is what we do. So the ethos of the club is already there.
I agree.
He just comes in and tweaks it on the playing side of things. So Sullivan ain't got that. Sullivan can't have a manager like that because he has no idea. He has no ambition. He has no ethos.
That's why the director of football thing does need to happen if it's going to. But I don't think it will. I
agree with you. What I'm saying is that comment was saying, who do the fans want to manage him? I'm thinking, how many Brighton fans knew who De Zerbi was? We don't particularly know who the best person is to manage. We can say this manager and that they play a style of football that fans enjoy. They'll bring in this player, that player. But fundamentally, if your club is well run, the fans haven't got to worry about it, because the fans can just sit back and go, the club will sort it.
Well, that's essentially exactly how I feel about it. People in the chat or wherever can say, "Oh yeah, it's all right saying it reminds me, but who do you want to replace him?" It's not our job to
careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for.
Be careful what you wish for. Yeah, the usual. It just begs the question. It's kind of like the notion being in that question is that we couldn't bring in a manager from anywhere who could have us playing a better brand of football and getting better results, particularly in the league, than David Moyes does. It's redundant.
But we ran some polls the other day when we was doing our show, and it was quite a busy one. We had about 500 people on there. It was the end of season show, and no, but I'm saying it was. I'm saying it was about there was. It was a decent poll
All
that we ran. So we ran a couple, and the first one was I think it was do you think that Moyes does deserve to keep his job? This is a difference, and there's a lot of people that think he deserves to keep his job. In terms of it was around about 50-50. Then I said then we put a poll out saying, do you care about attractive football at all? Do you care about the football that you watch?
Right.
90% of people said yes, 10% said no. Then I said, are you happy? Bearing in mind, this was only about 5-6 days after we won the European Cup. Are you happy that David Moyes is staying? And it was 80% said no.
Yeah.
So there are people that think, yeah, he does deserve to be here, but you're not happy with it.
Yeah, and that doesn't really make sense on one hand, and it does on the other, because it's sort of. Look, I'm not going to have. I'm not. Me personally, I'm not having to go with anyone that wants to keep Moyes. I totally understand. You know, you've always got everyone's got their own opinions. You know, we're never all going to agree. And the funny thing is that, you know, Man City have just won their first ever European trophy, first Champions League trophy, and they are comprehensively the best team in England. They play amazing football, and they deserve to win the trophy against Inter Milan. And the first thing that happens is when they do win the trophy, is it all comes out. This is what happens when you money launder, when you spend £1 billion on players to get there, when you're, you know, this, that, and the other. There's no sort of football going, well, you got the best manager, you got a load of players, they manage really well, they play really good brand of football. You know, no one begrudges the fact that Man City win the league, really, because they're so good at playing football, and they do deserve to win it most years. And it's like, you know, they've just won the league, and the first thing people do is be negative about it. They spot the negativity in it. So as much as, you know, West Ham winning the European trophy, people are always going to be negative to an extent. And then you sort of think, well, where's the positives going to come out of it? And you're thinking, well, you know, as much as people might not want, you know, the good football, that, you know, they're going to look at it and go, well, he's won one European trophy. You know, I don't mind watching crap football as long as we sort of win things. And it's like, well, the West Ham I've always grown up with, funny enough, has been the complete opposite of that. Is the fact that, you know, West Ham fans don't expect to win anything. I think most of us can agree we don't expect to win an FA Cup. We'd love it. It'd be a bonus, and it's like a memory you'll never forget. But we know, in general, we're not going to win anything. We're not a successful team. We don't go out to win.
And to be honest, right? if we're all being honest, it's much more difficult to win the FA Cup or Carabao Cup than the Conference League.
Of course it is.
Yeah, and if we've had a bit of if we're going to be completely honest with you, we've had it easy with that competition this season. It's only really been a test in a semi-final, and you know what I'm saying is that most fans really, yes, I understand the fact that, you know, they think Moyes should keep you know, give him a few more months, fair enough. But fundamentally, I think most of the fans would say that if we're not going to win anything, at least play some sort of decent football. At least bring in players that can, when they've got 60,000 to turn up every week to watch us, you know, give us something to go home and smile about. Even if we lose 3-0, at least go out there and give it 100% and have players running around everywhere, or, you know, playing a good bit of football. So fair enough, he's, you know, he's won us a trophy. Thank you very much, David Moyes, for winning us a trophy. But overall, football changes overnight. You can be celebrating 1 minute and you can be pissed off the next. And I'm telling you now, if people think that, you know, come the first day of the season, if we start playing shit, you know, we aren't entitled to go, this is shit. You can't go, 2 months ago you won a European trophy, be happy. No, this is shit. You can't just go, yes, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I understand. Look, it was a huge thing for us to win a major trophy. I think particularly a European one. I think it added a little bit more spice, you know.
It did.
It was brilliant to be European champions. And obviously, look, as a fan base, we're all really kind of giddy off the back of that. And we're all very, very grateful to David Moyes that he has delivered us a major trophy, a significant trophy. And I think that's why a lot of fans have really softened on the fact that he's been allowed to continue as manager and that he'll be here next season. I just think it's short-sighted. Really, I think it's short-sighted.
I think Trodge is touching on something in the chat. So Trodge is having a conversation, I think, was with a Happy Hammerette, and he's basically said that he was pissed off that we didn't invest when we were fifth. But then he went on to say, I think they're talking about the last window. The problem was we signed different types of players. But the thing is, it isn't like he did that on a whim, Trodge. He did that because 6 months prior to that, we were terrible in the league. David Moyes himself came out and said that his style of football was not working anymore because we were so good at it and we was a counter-attacking team. So our opposition adjusted. They was giving us more respect. They weren't allowing us in behind. That's why we were struggling so much. And that is why David Moyes came out and addressed that situation himself. And he said, we've got to change. We've got to change the way that we play. We've got no choice. And that's why they went out and they bought them players. And yes, he did revert towards the end of the season. Not that I saw that much difference in our style of play. Apparently, we was trying to play a possession-based game, but we never reached above 40%. So we weren't exactly very good at it. But he did revert back to the old guard, to the old style towards the end of the season. That did save us. It got us over the line, which indicates to me that is he going to revert permanently to a style that he himself said was failing a year ago? He said it was failing and he had to move away from. And when we do this rebuild now, is he going to go and try and do what he did at the start of this season, continue with that project of trying to get us to play a progressive style? Or do you think that he's basically the players we're going to sign now are going to be just purely to suit the old-fashioned David Moyes style to smash and grab? What do you think is going to happen?
Verge?
I just think, I mean, look, it's only 10 days ago, the European game and all that.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to think that we're not going to be any more forward-thinking than we was last summer. My concern is that we bring in players too late, because then, I think Nick said it to me the other day, and it's quite true, you don't have a proper pre-season. You know, all these things have a knock-on effect. If you don't have a pre-season with your set team, your set squad, you're going to start the season slow more often than not. This window is massive again. This now is huge again, and
is it arguably bigger than the last one? Probably is, isn't it?
Well, it is because of the fact we're losing Rice, and Rice is such a linchpin for the team. It's obvious, but it's true. My concern is that the money we get for Rice is wasted, and that, we saw it with Tottenham when they sold Bale a few years ago. They spent all that money, but none of them done anything really. Lamella and players like that. It's huge. I just can't see it all. I don't want to be negative, but I can't see it all falling into place. I can't see Moyes changing his ethos and style. I can't see us getting the players in we need in good time. Warburton's gone already. Is Newman going or gone? I can't remember if he's
going.
He's going.
So we're sort of back to square one, and square one less Rice, which is
interesting.
And apparently, if reports are to be believed, David Moyes has conceded to Sullivan that he can bring in the odd player himself. So we're back to kind of circus territory again.
Well, Gary hit on a point the other day. We was having a little WhatsApp chat. We was going to put it out as a show. We do that every now and then because we're not always available to go in front of a camera. So we do these WhatsApp chats. I haven't put it out yet. Gary said Gary's take on this is that he's completely subservient, David Moyes, to David Sullivan now. He thinks that he knows he should have been sacked, and he is eternally grateful to David Sullivan for keeping him in his job to the point where he's given him the chance to win a trophy. He thinks he's incredibly, incredibly grateful to David Sullivan, and he will take whatever Sullivan throws at him. You've heard his arse kissing in the post-match interviews, which is indicative of that as well. He's always thanking the board, and he thinks that there is a bit of a power shift now where it was David Moyes, but now it's David Sullivan. He said he thinks that David Sullivan probably feels like he's won that Conference Cup because he kept Moyes in, and he gave him a chance and he stuck with him. And David Moyes, this is Gary's take, and David Moyes is forever grateful to Sullivan. And if he chooses to bring in a director of football or throw him a player, Moyes ain't going to say anything. Again, a very, very, shit position for us to be in. But lovely, I suppose, if David Moyes wants to start playing Championship Manager again, he can, can't he? David Sullivan.
It's funny because there was a video, I think, Wednesday, they've done videos on the West Ham Twitter that hadn't been seen, they hadn't posted since the final, and it was like interviews with players and parts of the celebration they hadn't quite aired. And it was an interview with David Moyes, and he sort of seemed more human than he has done all season, as if like he knows the season's done, he's won the league, and he's just going to talk from the heart. And it was quite a human. It was almost like a fan or one of the players. It wasn't like a manager who's trying to keep his professional head. It was like, this is what you do it for. This is all made it all worth it. And it was like, wow. It was like, normally he's very sort of like, well, boys play well, almost like reading from a script. And for the first time, it was almost like a bit emotional, to be fair. And I thought to myself, maybe this is him just trying to enjoy himself, and he'll maybe be a bit different next season. I can't see it.
Mate, that must have been his best day in football, especially with the pressure. At least he's talking on behalf of David Moyes. He must have been under so much pressure. He was under so much pressure. The release for him, it must have been unbelievable.
The funniest thing about it was the interviewer asking him, said to him, "Does this rack up as, given all your other successes in your career, how does this rack up?" And he said he stopped, like going, "I haven't been successful anywhere else. Like, I haven't won a trophy anywhere else." And he was like, you have to just, it's up there. It's definitely up there. And he like, well, it was a bit awkward. It was an awkward 5 seconds because he realised that he was like,
it's a highlight of his career.
It is, and it's taken him 97 games, I think it was officially. But that's a bit worrying because I remember Allardyce coming out in it. Not that Allardyce should take his word for it, but Allardyce was in TalkSport, and Jim White was asking him, or someone was asking him about what it was like to be a manager under David Sullivan. And he was going, well, it was okay, but then one day he'd randomly turn up at the training field with a brand new player, and he'd go, right, here he is, boom, get on with it, right. And he was like, well, who is he? Where does he play? What's the? I think it's one of the Wellington Paulista, the Brazilian. He played like one game for us, so he didn't.
There's been so many. Many.
He just used to turn up on a training ground. He'd bring a player over.
How many has there been, John? Strikers that
this is
50. I saw. There's a reel the other day on Facebook, and there was 3 guys on a podcast talking, and they were saying there was 50 along the lines of 53 strikers.
Yeah.
22 haven't scored a goal.
But that's what I'm saying. So this striker problem that we're experiencing now under Moyes has happened long before Moyes.
The Scamacca thing. Got to talk about Scamacca, John, because that has pissed you off, innit?
Yeah, I think
he don't get pissed off. Because you mentioned it earlier, Nick, about the striker issues that we're going to have this summer, and this is one of my big worries. I'll bring you back in a second, Virg.
Yeah,
because in all likelihood, Scamacca is going to be gone. Antonio, I think, will be booted out because of his recent comments. And Danny Ings
deserves to be.
Will go as well because he just doesn't fit into this system whatsoever. So we're essentially going to be back to having basically Mubama left on the books, who's a first-team striker on the first team. That's a massive worry, Virg, about what's going to happen up front this summer, and he's got to get this right this time.
Well, he hasn't got it right, has he? Because if he was going to get it right, you would, in my opinion, bend over backwards to get Scamacca on board. Now, when I saw Scamacca at the final on the pitch with the players getting his medal, that filled me with a bit of hope. I thought, oh look, because if he hated it that much, he wouldn't be there, right? And I still, to this day, think he must have a little bit of a bond with the players at the very least to go there. Now, you could say, oh, he's just going there to get his medal. But he didn't have to go there and get that medal. He could have just quite easily not bothered, right? If you've got a player like Scamacca, in the small amount of time I've seen him play for West Ham, I think there's a player in there. I've seen some fantastic touches.
I think Scamacca's a quality. I really think
Scamacca's quality. But Tom, I'm not going to lie. Before he came to West Ham, I didn't know much about him. I hadn't seen him play properly, right? So I didn't know much about him, right? The times I've seen him play for us live, he does things with such ease. He makes things look so easy. I remember the goal in Europe when he used his hand at first, but then he chipped it over the keeper. He just had an air of arrogance about him. He had a very nonchalant.
Ibrahimovic.
Yeah, just a lot of, a bit like Di Canio, just made things look so easy. So it's not even about the money we've spent on him, right? It doesn't matter if we spent 5 million or 40 million on him. You've got a striker there who could be the linchpin of our attack, who could be the main man, who could score us, 15 to 20 goals in a season quite easily, in my opinion.
I don't know.
They should be bending over backwards for him to keep him. They should get him on board and fucking go and get him and bring him back. Now, on TalkSport the other day, I think Kevin Nolan was on TalkSport and they asked him about Scamacca and he said, we love him. We've seen great things. But Nolan said maybe it's because he came over here. When he lived in Italy, he was very close to his family, lived very close. He's come over here, young man on his own. He's finding the off-the-field stuff difficult. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I just think they need to try and keep him. There's no point just accepting it. But they will.
Nick, when you look at it, Nick, this is another striker we spent a lot of money on. We can't lose our fucking shirt on another striker like this. And this is a striker. This one's on Moyes. This was his signing. And this
is on Moyes. Yeah.
You would think Sullivan should be saying to him, mate, we fucking splashed out big time for this striker that you wanted. Now you fucking find a way to make it work, because we're not losing our fucking shirt on another one.
But this
and
is
I'm
really...
certainly not going to give you another fucking 30-odd million for a striker.
No,
you can't trust him with
no,
a
but
striker.
This is really sort of broken my heart, this story, to be honest. And yeah, look, I don't doubt that the guy wants to leave, and I don't doubt he's probably missing home and all of that, because it hasn't gone well for him here. I know he's had his injury issues, but as John said, and we saw very similar with Haller when Haller first came in. We saw glimpses of magic from Haller until he got the life sucked out of him, and then he just turned into, they get fed up. The same's happened with
Scamacca. Kick merchant.
Yeah, but the same sort of happened with Scamacca now, and the thing is, I think it's tragic, to be quite honest. And if it had gone differently this year, if at any point we'd have set up in such a way whereby we'd have played to his strengths or tried to accommodate him, or I'll go back to the Aston Villa game where we played Scamacca up front under protest because there was pressure from the fans. He started Scamacca, Antonio was on the bench. And then what he did was we sat back deep. That was a dreadful game. We didn't try to do anything. He got nothing, not a sniff. We weren't even getting the ball forward, nothing up there at all. He then substituted Antonio for Scamacca and threw a load of fucking bodies forward and gave Antonio a load of support. And Scamacca's reaction on the bench, he was absolutely fuming. The way he's been treated when he got this knee injury as well, we was pumping his knee full of steroids to put off the surgery that he needed. But then we never used him in that time. So this was months and months and months ago. So he could have just had his procedure and he would have been back for the run-in. Everything's been managed poorly. And I just think, I don't think we're going to get a better chance at getting a real proper fucking striker, a good striker, as John said, probably could be at the linchpin of our attack. He's worth building your team around.
Yeah.
He's worth building your team around, and we're not even going to give it a go. And I think that David Moyes, he's a type of player. He's a type of person. We've seen it before. If he's got problems, people that are giving him grief or they're not happy because they're not getting game time, he'd rather just get rid of them rather than looking at the problem, rather than trying to sort of get the best out, trying to rectify the situation. He would just rather just start all over again. That's what he does. Get rid of the problem. Get rid of them. I think it's unforgivable. I don't think you should do that. What he needs is, John. What I think Scamacca. If you wanted to keep Scamacca now, regardless of all of his homesickness, you sit Scamacca down, you speak to him and his family, and you say, look, it ain't gone well this year. It ain't gone well at all. But listen, you're playing for West Ham. You're on the biggest stage in the Premier League. With all due respect, you can go back to Roma, this, that, the other. You can do that. But this is the biggest stage. If you prove yourself here, it will fare you well for the rest of your career. So when you do go, if you can do it in the Premier League, you can do it anywhere. We're going to build our team around you this year. We're going to make this a success. You don't want to leave England having failed. Stay with us. Stay with us for another season, and we will prove to you we'll make it work for you. I don't reckon Scamacca's had that conversation with anyone. Do you?
No.
But I think Luke just said it. As much as Moyes is to blame, and he is to blame, of course he is. Sullivan should be saying, no, you get him in this team. We'll fly his whole family over. We'll get them a house. We'll get them all living together.
Yeah.
But the writing's been on the wall for months, because when did Mancini come out and say to him, basically, you need to be playing? That was before Christmas.
Yeah.
So the writing's been on the wall for months. So
you know what, Virg? If you think back, I can't remember what game was it at the London Stadium when Scamacca was back. He was raring to go.
Wolves,
he didn't get subbed on, and he ended up. There was this kind of picture of him looking incredibly forlorn, sitting down against the hoardings. Yeah. I think that might have been the moment that kind of broke him, where he thought, "I've just got no future here." Do you remember what game that was?
Yeah, I think it might be Paddy.
I don't remember the game. But I remember that moment.
Image,
I remember the moment.
Yeah. It's. I don't know if anyone's seen it. If anyone's on Instagram or anything like that. But he's 2 days ago. I think he must be in Italy in a minute. He must be on holiday. But Scamacca is training in a muddy field you'd probably see on a Sunday league park, on his own with a trainer, and he's doing shooting practice. And I remember Mark Noble or Declan Rice saying that they asked him who's got the best, who hits the ball hardest in training. So immediately he said Scamacca, sort of hardest, most direct, accurate shot out of all the team. And I'm seeing him here, and if anyone's got Instagram, go on Scamacca's profile and you'll see there's a clip of him doing a little drill and running around, and also him, scoring a goal from a fair. I know he's a professional footballer in an open field, but it's good to see him out there and trying to get fit, and he's. I like the, but the problem is that there's two sides. It's because on one side he's not going anywhere because no one's going to pay the money that we want to compensate.
Apparently they are. Apparently you've got Juventus, Roma, and Milan fighting for his signature.
Well, I heard it was a loan first of all.
Yeah, they don't want that,
there is a club that want to loan him, but apparently, he hasn't dropped in value. I mean, he's returned for the games that he's played ain't bad.
No. Yeah, I actually think, Verge, you know what? I think we very possibly will get our money back.
Yeah, he ain't dropped in value.
Like, despite what's happened this season, what's happened this season, those Italian clubs know what they're buying.
Yeah, they do, but also they know he wants to leave, and if he's told the club he wants to leave, they're in the position of power because they'll go, well, you want 40 million.
He's on a long contract to us. We're going to say, look, if we don't get our money back, if we don't get our money back, he's not going anywhere.
No, they won't, mate. They want him off the wage bill, Tom. You know how fucking tight they are. They're not going to be happy him sitting there doing nothing on his contract. They will take a hit on it if it comes to it. They've done it with everyone else we've fucked off before, like Haller and that. They'll take a hit. And Anderson, prime example, they'll take a hit on it. They would rather take a hit on it, mate.
Vlasic is the latest one.
You know. We can blame David Moyes till the cows come home, and he is to blame, especially in this instance, right? But he doesn't run the club. He doesn't own the club. So the owner, i.e. Sullivan, is as culpable because he should be saying, fuck off, Moyes. We spent this amount of money on your say-so. Get him in that team. He has to do it. He has to do it. And I can't see any way. I'm praying that there's a way back for him. But if you believe everything we see, there is no way back. But I just hope there's a slim chance we can get him back in the team.
Actually, do you know what? It's actually depressing for me because even though Scamacca only signed last summer and he's only played probably a handful of games, I don't know how many exactly, but he has played some football for us, particularly in Europe.
Yeah.
And I really liked Scamacca. I was excited what I saw from him. And I thought, finally, we might have a striker here, like a proper striker who knows where the net is. He scored all kinds of goals. He scored headers. He scored this kind of sublime stuff, like Luke was saying, the chip. He scored that near post goal, you remember, in Europe. And then he's also hitting the screamers.
Yeah.
He hit that low drive as well, which was an absolute beauty. He hit the half volley one at home. He's hit some great goals, all kinds of stuff. And I thought, oh, this is a proper striker we've got here. And I'll tell you what, I'm actually really upset at the prospect that he's just going to leave now and that we're never going to see.
And
I actually think it's a fucking disgrace.
We shouldn't allow him to fucking fail, and that's why I think you need a director of football to come in. This guy that we've been, is it Tim Steedman, the guy that we've been linked with?
German fella, wasn't it?
German fella. This guy prides himself on getting the very, very best out of the players that he brings in. So this guy has bought a load of fucking good players. Some of the names on that list are ridiculous. You've got to look it up. But on the whole, I think 20 players that he's bought for Leverkusen, and his net spend was 30 million because he buys and sells players. Now you don't do that if you depreciate players. That means that you bring players in and you make them better. There is no way that if you was in charge, if you was a director of football and you brought that guy in, you'd be. I know he wasn't here at the time. It was Moyes who brought him in, but you'd be fucking fuming that he weren't playing in a way to get the best out of him and trying to sort of increase, even if you're looking at it from a business perspective, because they're assets, grow them, grow these players. And we just can't keep doing it. And there are very, very few players. And like I say, there are very few players that you can look at that David Moyes has bought in his tenure, with the exception of Bowen and Paqueta, who he's probably broken even with, and maybe Kera, who he's broken even with. The rest of them they've all depreciated. They're not worth what we paid for them. It's not been good business.
Like, I think the problem, for me, like a massive problem we're going to have this summer when it comes to whoever's going to be our main striker next season, if it's not going to be Scamacca or Antonio, is that whoever is finding our players, our strikers, is going to have to find a young Antonio clone, because it seems that's the only kind of striker.
It's not the striker.
Any kind of joy under David Moyes. And where the hell are we going to find a young Antonio clone?
It's not the strikers. I mean, a lot of the people, and the thing is, the West Ham fans get frustrated with these players. I mean, I've seen it now from Trodge in the chat where it's sort of criticised a little bit, not badly, but criticised Haller and Scamacca. They're giants, but they don't use their body. Look, listen, this is a very particular role that David Moyes expects a player to play up front that you don't really play in very many teams anywhere else. When Scamacca was at his best, he had Raspadori, pace and power, provided in and around him. He had players around him. Haller played in the front three where he had pace in and around him. This is what you do. If you want to get the best out of these players, that's how you use them. But if what we're going to do is stick a bloke up front for 90% of the game on his own to fight 2 or 3 defenders, win flick-ons, and then go and fucking run onto the flick-on himself and basically do it all himself, then I'm sorry, 90% of strikers that are bona fide strikers are not going to do that. They're going to look at that and go, fuck off. I want to see you've got to be, you know, they get goal bonuses. You've got to be giving me chances. They get judged on goals. And when you look at what Antonio said now, I know I didn't like it because of the timing, but he was fucking bang on. And I know Luke defended him to the hilt, but he was absolutely bang on with what he said. You do have to fight for scraps. You are. It's in that system. And I don't wish it on anyone. I've got to be honest. Playing up front for us in that system, I don't.
Yeah, and you'd struggle to think of a striker that we could sign this somewhere that would actually work. You know, that could do what Antonio does. I mean, Antonio is actually quite unique. You have to say, you know, Antonio's ability.
He's not a striker.
It's why I've always given, and until the podcast he did recently, as we know, it's why I've always given Antonio immense credit because he's much maligned amongst our own fan base, right?
It's a bastard job he's got.
He could not. No one could, and we've tried it. We've seen it. No one can do that role as good as Antonio, who's a fucking right back from non-league bloody Mitcham and Tooting or something. Yeah. So that's why I've always given him credit. But I just wonder, to some extent, if Antonio's arrogance, knowing that he's the only one that can do that, has become more evident in the last 18 months, where he's coming out and saying things that we're like, oh, come on, don't say that. Because he maybe feels a little bit untouchable. And I'm not slagging him off because I think
he actually is brilliant
for us. Yeah, but he is. No, and this is it. So you know, we know that he said last year, we need another striker, bring him in. I want the competition. But the thing is with the no, I know, but the reality is there is no competition for Antonio.
What do you think of that, John?
No one will do that.
John, read that message.
Next W employee said that Moyes wants to try Cornet in it.
It'd be broken in 2 games.
I was just about to say, right?
He would. I mean, he could. Cornet, sorry, I'll let you back in a second, but Cornet absolutely cannot do what Antonio does. Number one,
you get battered. In that position.
And secondly, Cornet would manage to be offside taking a fucking penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, What do you? Sorry, carry on.
Hey, you're right. Just been thinking about it for the last week or so. That I probably thought about it. As everyone knows, right? Moyes doesn't tend to work well with strikers.
That? You see the size of that thing? Sorry,
it's not a fucking mosquito, is it? Jesus Christ!
That?
Go on,
Did you build your house on a fucking turd?
Jesus.
Near Spurs ground.
It's your hair, Nick. You just seen your hair popping up on your face.
It was massive, mate. It was massive.
Willow the wisp.
But I think we all know realistically that Moyes' most successful strikers have been wingers, right? And Arnautovic was his most perfect example and perfect striker, really, because he was strong, quick, mobile, bullied defenders. You know, gave it. Antonio's different, but the same kind of position, and the way he plays is strong. Not technique is totally poor compared to Arnautovic, but realistically, if Moyes is going to stay on as manager, as he obviously is now, the best thing for us to do, really, which people will laugh at this, but is to go out and buy a winger. And if he's, I know he's just been put there, is a winger that he can convert to being a striker. If Cornet is going to be, I'd rather him. Do you know what though?
Look, you're not converting him to be a striker because that isn't even a fucking striker's role. You basically you because what a winger does all game long is run up and down the fucking wing. Boom, boom, run. That's all they do, up and down, taking on. So it's no coincidence that Arnie made that transition. It's no coincidence that Antonio made that transition. No. But they're not fucking strikers. I know. Look, listen. If I could have Arnie without the attitude, he was amazing. He was a bit different. But look, Moyes didn't make Arnie. Arnie was a great player when we signed him. He was Stoke's best player.
Whoa.
He was Stoke's best player.
Hang on a minute. But Moyes did get the best out of Arnie. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he did. But
okay,
he did.
So credit where credit's due there.
He didn't create him. He didn't find a player from nowhere and make him. Arnie he had a good reputation.
No, but before Moyes came, he was shit with us.
At West Ham, he was shit.
Yeah, Arnie's failed because what's his name, Bilic, whoever signed him, didn't know to get the best out of him. And I think that apparently, I've read in the past, Moyes put his arm around him and said, I want you to be the number one striker at West Ham. And that's why Natovic,
apparently
was.
Apparently, Moyes said to him, if you want to be a fan's favourite, you just need to run around more. And apparently, Arnautovic started running around more and trying to put more effort in, basically.
Yeah.
Look, we're in all sorts of trouble if we don't get the strikers and the midfielders in. The Rice money is... I'm worried that people are saying that the money's already spent from last year. That's my biggest concern.
A lot of people have said that.
I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but if that's true, I mean, we are going to be proper shopping in the bottom of the barrel.
What do you guys reckon on the... there's been a rumour that Benrahma might even...
I think that was all. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that is going to happen. Because I know people have said it before. It's all happy in the camp. Look at all the togetherness. That's euphoria of winning a cup. We've got the best fans in the world. Those players had a party. And I'm sure they were happy, and it was amazing. After the season they've all had, they would have been over the moon. But nothing will remove any issues that they've got. They will all resurface again when that Premier League season starts. We know that Benny and Moyes haven't got the best relationship. I mean, what was Benny's reaction when Moyes went to put his arm around him after that game? Do you remember, John? He was like he flinched, didn't he?
Very awkward.
Like he was going to hit him.
Yeah, very
awkward. I do think that if he goes, it won't be because West Ham want to sell him. I think that's another one that I think I do. Fornals, I've heard a story that Fornals wants to leave. He wants to go back home. We've seen him. He's been emotional when he's come on and he scored that. He ain't been getting any game time. So you're losing Lanzini, you're losing Fornals, potentially Benny. You talk losing your forward line. I mean, fuck me, this is a big job. Is Moyes the right man for this job?
But then again, what I would say, what I'm seeing a lot in the fan base, with all the rumours flying about and that, is that anyone we're linked with, especially midfielders, to replace Rice, which we're not going to replace Rice because he's irreplaceable. But every midfielder we're linked with, West Ham fans turn their nose up at.
Well, I'd turn my nose up at the ones that turn their nose up at us, like Calvin Phillips, James Ward. I don't like going back after the same players.
I'm talking about players like, and I know I'm going to get lambasted for this, right? But I'm talking about if it ain't going to happen. But say if he went to Man United, there was rumours going out that if he went to Man United, McTominay or Fred. Now you're laughing already, but this is what I'm saying. We're not.
You said Højbjerg the other day. You might as well get
no.
Eric
What
Dyer.
I said to you was Højbjerg picking up. We're not. One thing Sullivan said in his interview after he came out 12 hours later and said Rice has played his last game, basically, right? The one thing I agreed with him was when he said we're going to have to replace Rice with a player or players. This is the point. You're not going to get one player in to do the Rice job because no one can do that. We can't afford that type of player. Right, so we're going to have to get in 2 or 3 midfielders who are going to have to, rotate and things like that in games and situations. So a lot of West Ham fans, we're turning their nose up at a lot of players. We're turning their nose up at Downs, who hasn't been given a go. We're turning up our nose at players who are already established at Premier League teams, who we are going, they're not good enough because they're nowhere near as good as Rice. We fucking know that.
But the thing is, Virg, I don't think we necessarily have to get a player who's as good or as near.
But that's what people are thinking.
So I think what's more important is that you get that balance right between the 3 midfielders.
I don't want to Spurs cast off. Full fucking stop.
No, I'm just using it as an example.
I think
the important thing for me is that the balance is right. If you get those 3 midfielders that we use, if you bin Souček back to the bench, and you've got 3, obviously, Paqueta is already there.
There's no point even talking about that, though, Tom.
I know, but I'm just saying it's more important that if we get the balance right, then we wouldn't necessarily miss Rice as much as we might think.
Oh, you'll always miss Rice. Any team would miss Rice. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying it doesn't have to be a fucking disaster, Virg. It doesn't have to plummet us into the depths of despair.
Right.
We just have to get the recruitment right and get that midfield 3 right. If we can do that, we can still have a very strong midfield. I'd love to get Lavia in from Southampton to play just as a DM.
He's a good
in
player.
a really horrible Southampton team. He was brilliant.
I will say, have you seen anything of Musa, who is the big buzz? That's the big buzz name at the minute. I must admit, he's fucking good. But people are saying it's a done deal. It ain't a done deal. Valencia are in trouble. They do need to sell him. He's a 20-year-old American who came through the Arsenal academy. Rapid, athletic, fucking brilliant. He was good in the World Cup as well. Amazing player. But he's going to be in such high demand. We haven't got a free run at him. He's a top player. Arsenal, the Arsenal bloke who let him go said it was his biggest mistake. You know? We're not getting a free run at him.
When we talk about players and fans turning their nose up at players, I think there's an element of, I think we were mentioning it earlier, when we link with players like Ward-Prowse, there's an element of boredom. Like, oh, here we go again, the same old players dealt with around.
I don't like the same names,
right? And I think there's an element, like you say there, Nick. Right, there's an element of the fan base that don't want to hear about the same. Let's say, for example, mid-table players that play well in a certain team, and we're going to get them into our team. There's the element that want the second division Norwegian gem that no one's heard of. There's you know, the guy who just said Musa from Valencia, no one's really heard about him, so bang, suddenly we're finding out, and it's exciting. It's exciting for fans to go, hold on, this is left field, this is out of pocket, this is something they wouldn't expect West Ham to be linked with, you know, an up and coming European, you know, going to be someone who's going to do well for the team rather than someone we already know about. We've seen for season after season after season a certain team, and we're going to be linked with him again, the same as we used to do years ago, about 10 years ago under Sullivan and Gold, when we used to hear about player after player. We'd be linked with them for about 4 or 5 seasons and maybe get them when they're over the hill and stuff like that. So to an extent, I understand the whole turn their nose up, because we've heard it all before. We've seen these players linked with us time and time again, and when they come, they don't particularly pull up any trees.
I just feel like, mate, with these players, I don't like being. I mean, we make a habit of it, you know. We, like you mentioned, Badgie, we was stalking him 3 times. He knocked us back.
I know,
and but in the Premier League with some of these Premier League players, especially for some reason British players, I don't know why we bother when they're at established clubs already, because for some reason they don't want to come to us. I mean, we've had it with Calvin Phillips. We're getting it with James Ward. We got it with James Ward-Prowse. I don't know whether he wishes he did come to us. I'm not too sure. But that's why I wish that we do. I think we need to go a bit left field. I think you need to go and get players, you know, like that, players of that profile, like Musa from Valencia, give them their shot in the Premier League. I think that's the only way we're going to do it. Otherwise, we're only going to get players that, I don't know. It feels like Premier League players, unless they're a West Ham fan, if they're worth their salt and they're a good player from another club, I just don't feel like West Ham are going to be able to sign them. I'd sign them. I don't know why we're going after them.
What do you think we are? What are we at the what are we? Are we a mid-table team?
I think we're a mid-table team. Yeah.
So that's what we have to.
We have to go with last season. I mean, we were a bottom half team.
So therefore, we're not going to be. You know, when a player like Calvin Phillips is at City, he's. I don't know where he thinks he's going to go, but he's going to look down his nose on us, rightly or wrongly, isn't he? He's going to look at that and go, "I've just won the treble, playing a handful of games."
Well, he's turned it down flat. He's turned it down flat. He said, "No, I'm not."
He'd rather, and many other players, I believe, would rather sit on Man City's bench than play every week for West Ham.
Maybe so. But what I'm saying is, Tom, we have to shop in the right department store for West Ham as we are. We can't have Nick thinks it's me being unambitious. But, you know, last year, Nick, with all them transfers, we were linked with all these bloody ridiculous players, Jonathan David, all this stuff. We knew we weren't going to get them, mate. Paqueta was out of the ordinary. Yes, I agree. But in the main, we're not going to get them types of players, Nick, because
it's not unambitious. I've just said Musa's not ambitious. He's a
no, I didn't say Musa. I'm talking about 20 million.
But what I'm saying is going and getting somebody from another club in the Premier League who basically that team don't want. I think we should be more ambitious than that, because you can go further afield and buy a player who's fucking on their game, a young player coming through, rather than an established player who's had a shit season, so his team are looking to get rid of him.
If we was to be ambitious, I'd like West Ham to do something a bit left field in the sense of rather than going for Phillips from Man City, we go for someone like Rico Lewis from Man City on loan for a season, right? Something like that, something along them lines, because you know Rico Lewis isn't going to start every game for Man City. He's not going to play every game. Whereas if he comes to West Ham, he might get maybe 30-40% more game time than he would do at Man City. Sometimes something like that, just to put it out there, just to let the media talk about it for a week, saying, "Oh, West Ham are looking at this player, they won't get him." but at least he'll get us talking in those circles, going, oh, West Ham, rather than going for a James, nothing against him at all. I actually really like him as a player, but rather than going James Ward-Prowse, 50 million, we know all about it. Pay for Southampton, takes really good free kicks. Let's go and get someone that no one really thinks we would do. And go and get someone of that ilk who's up and coming, wants to make a name for himself, and give him back to Man City after a year. Let the rest of Europe show that we're ambitious in that side of it as well.
Yeah, and even like the relegated clubs this season. I mean, there's some bloody good players in there. From the relegated clubs who would love to stay in the Premier League.
Villa have picked one up, haven't they? Tillemans.
Yeah. No, I'd love to get
Madison. You got Madison, haven't you? Madison and Barnes.
But Nick,
I'd love Barnes all day.
There's a couple at Southampton, like Levy. I've already mentioned the DM, brilliant player. He's only like 20. I'm telling you, give Levy another 3 or 4 seasons, like in the Prem or another like top league. He's going to be worth a fucking ton of money.
Levy the one they got from Chelsea, wasn't it?
Or City?
Was Levy the one from Chelsea?
I'm not sure.
But
also that Southampton, I can't remember. He's the left back last season for that Southampton. Looked absolute quality. Another young player, can't remember his name. Someone in the chat might know who the left back was.
They got another player called Alcaraz. I like Alcaraz.
He's good. He's good.
We've linked Alvarez. Anyone know about anything that Alvarez has been linked with? Plays for?
He's a good player. He's a good player. Yeah. Well, he's more than good, but he'll be expensive. You're looking at 40-50 million.
Trouble is
really
probably.
I'll
tell you what the big thing is if you say
we're not getting him though because he wants to go to Dortmund and Dortmund want him, so that ain't happening.
Right. If you say to someone, right, we've been looking at this player, never heard of him before, let's look on YouTube, everyone automatically goes, we looked at Julian Faber on YouTube and he looked really good, so that means he can be really good in real life, is he? Well, no, it's not the same for every player, but it does give you an idea. Sometimes if you look on Twitter, if you look on things, I'm going to do that, I think, after this video, and have a little look on YouTube and see a few of these players, because I like the fact that I don't know about these players. I like the fact I've never heard of them.
If you have a look at Musa, you'll want us to sign him.
Yeah,
that
sounds good.
He's a fucking good player. Yeah, really good.
Hopefully. And if
he'll give us pace and energy in the middle. Really, very good player.
Don't swear.
No, while you're on there, mate.
Don't swear. I don't fucking swear.
Nick's got his own show reel of his football skills. He looks really good on his show reel as well.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, all techers.
Is it photoshopped? Just his head on a really professional football. The F2.
Here's a question, because I haven't heard anything about this. Obviously, last summer, I don't think any of us ever expected we were going to splash 180 million. It was a very, very pleasant surprise and very welcome. If we can assume Declan Rice goes for around the 100 million mark or thereabouts, what do you think the budget is going to be? Is it going to be much more than that? Or, I mean, what do you think was already in the kitty outside of the Rice money? I mean, we're hardly going to splash a lot again, are we?
Don't know. Well, they're going to have to spend something.
The fan base would expect them to spend everything they get in return for Rice, wouldn't they? Because
but there obviously must be a budget outside of that. I just wonder if it's paltry or if it's decent. I reckon could we potentially sell Rice and then go and spend another 180?
I reckon the Rice money is what we'll have to spend. I reckon we won't have. I don't think they'll spend any more.
It'll be what we make on players, won't it?
Yeah, if we want to buy any more than that, we'll have to sell a few off. Because what I mean is, if we get 100 million for Rice, we're not going to go and spend that on one player. That they'll try and spend that on 4, 5, maybe 6 players, won't they? Yeah. They're not going to be shopping in the 30, 40 million. I don't think they'll shop in that market anymore. I genuinely don't, and I don't think. Moyes prefers a cheaper alternative because he can maybe get more out of them, and
he likes grateful players. He doesn't want grateful, but he doesn't want top players that come in and players that are going to expect to be played. But like basically egos. He can't manage egos at all in any way. He can't.
Epic Cash Time says apparently the budget is 100 million and the Rice money. So you're talking 200 million. Well,
it has to be.
I think it does need to be.
It needs to be. It needs to be. But I just can't see them doing it 2 summers in a row. I'll be shocked if they do. Then hats off to them. But
can I ask us just a side question? What do we think about Ogbonna giving another year?
Great.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I'm happy.
Brilliant.
Good.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Right.
Honestly, I'm delighted. I love Oggy. He's been a brilliant servant to the club, and frankly, if you're talking about backup centre backs, I mean, Oggy is still very reliable.
Well,
he's still a quality centre back. I still would trust him as a bench player. And frankly, I really, really want him to retire at West Ham. I really do. I want to give him this last season, then he can retire and retire as a West Ham player. He's been a brilliant servant.
It's interesting because I kind of like it when they go back to where they started and retire. I like the idea of retiring West Ham, but there's a part of it does. I like the idea of Lanzini going back to River Plate and retiring River Plate. But it was funny. I don't know. I don't know what video I was watching in the week, but he made a good point, and that Ogbonna's been kept on, which is great, and it's nice to know that he's been rewarded with that. But it does worry me a little bit because he could end up being used as more than cover, because when you consider the Zoomers,
I think he's being kept around because they're trying to maintain some sort of leadership team within that squad. Because we're losing it with Rice. You know, we lost it with Noble, we lost it with Pearce. I think players like Cresswell and Ogbonna are critical for the changing room.
It's not even the changing room. It's for me. Ogbonna has a massive amount of experience. He is a leader, and he won't play as many games next season. Obviously, we can count that for sure. But it's the leadership qualities, it's the advice, it's the experience that he can give to the centre backs that are there. You can't put a price on that sort of experience. He will almost be a sort of player coach type role without being a coach, if you know what I mean. He will be there for advice to the centre backs. You know, the centre backs we've got, Aguerd, Zuma, Kera, they've got mistakes in them. They're all internationals, I get that, but someone like Ogbonna beside them, talking to them in training and things like that, I think that's great.
Talking about centre backs now, we all love Kurt Zuma. When Kurt Zuma's fit, I don't think you could get a better centre back. But you know 100% that for a third of the season or more, Zuma isn't going to be available. He will break down. It's a certainty. It will happen every time. Do we need another centre back?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Luke's having a munch.
Yeah, I know we've got Tilo Kehrer to fill in there, but I don't think, and we've got Oggy as well, but I don't like Oggy playing as a right-sided centre-back. So realistically, the only other one we have is Kehrer, and I think we're going to need one more than that.
Yeah,
just in case we do have a couple of injuries. I don't want a left-sided centre-back playing RCB.
Yeah.
So I definitely think we need to sign up. We don't necessarily need to splash out on one, but I think we need someone experienced and reliable to fill in if and when necessary. But Kehrer is there who can do it. Absolutely need another centre back. But actually, the last question that I have before we finish up, guys, and it's going to be a very, very important decision that Moyes has to make, and he'll have to make it soon. And I'll put this into the chat as well. Who should be our captain next season?
We've got to buy one in. Personally,
buy one in.
Buy a player. Buy a top player. I don't think. I don't think there is a captain. People are saying Aguerd, Kehrer. I know there might be leaders within it. It can't be Kehrer. I think it can't be Souček, and it probably will be Souček. I just think that we need a
captain.
We need to buy one. Buy a proper explosive leader in the middle.
Can I just pick you up on something, though, Nick? When Kehrer first come in, he was so vocal. We were saying all that. You were saying he's captain material.
But I don't know that he's going to be a first team player, John. That's why I don't pick him.
I think Aguerd. I know he's made a few mistakes in it, but they all have, right? I think Aguerd. I think he's international, Moroccan international. He speaks all these different languages. Personally, I think he can only be. I always think a centre back or a CDM has to be a captain. I don't think it works anywhere else. Maybe a goalkeeper, but I don't think we've got the keepers for that. But for me, I think it's Aguerd personally of the current crop.
I'll bet you a tenner it's Souček.
Well, then he'll never get dropped. He'll never get dropped.
I bet you a tenner it's Souček.
I kind of there's a lot of fans out there that they want Fornals to be the captain and they want this person to be captain. I think, well, it's that kind of claret and blue tinted glasses that you kind of go, well, they love the club, so it's why not better. So it doesn't always work like that. No. Sometimes you get the wrong person's captain for the wrong reasons. And for me, Rice maybe. I still don't really think he got given the captain's armband because he was a good captain. I think they've done it just to
He
keep him
he
sweet.
proved he was towards the end, though, didn't he?
Yeah, no, I agree now. But at the time, I think he was given. Is in the same reason why he's given Hammer of the Year this year. I don't think he was Hammer of the Year at all. I think they just gave it to just keep him sweet, the same as last season as well.
You don't think he was Hammer of the Year?
No, I don't think it was Hammer of the Year.
Who was Hammer of the Year?
Who was then?
I think, based on form-wise, probably Ben Rama at the start was probably our best player.
No, he was a good player, but not Rice. Rice has been our most consistent player.
Yeah, he has, but not Hammer of the Year. When you give Hammer of the Year, you give it to someone who's been, the best player bar none. And
well, he has been. He was the most consistent player we had.
Consistent player.
But you're
talking about it's like Paqueta. You couldn't give it to Paqueta because he only had half a good season.
Yeah, true.
Ben Rama was shit for months. He was good at the start, went missing in the middle, and came back at the end.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is I think it's an easy call because no one's particularly played that attitude. So you're right. No, fair enough. He probably deserve it. I
know what you mean. There's a lot of players that underperformed, but
no. What I'm saying is I think it's more of a fact that we know that Rice is the main number one. Everyone knows about Rice in England national. It's more of a keep him sweet kind of deal. That's just me being sceptical and saying that, not just for this season. I think last season as well. But overall, I think we need someone, and realistically, this is the thing the fans don't think about. We don't know who's the best leader. We're not in the training ground every day. We're not in the changing room every day. We're not, there's been a thing going around in the last 4 months that apparently Mark Noble used to, take the piss out of Moyes once he'd left the room because Moyes, wouldn't, was pissing everyone off with his negativity and his, he was a mood hoover or something like that. And as soon as he walked out the door, Noble would take the piss and lighten the mood sort of thing. So we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, and to an extent, the players will know themselves more or less who's the best person to be captain, which is a couple as well. But it'd be interesting to see who they pick because I know
you don't need to be a cap. You don't need to be wearing the armband to be a captain.
No, you don't. Scott Parker proved that when Matt Upson was captain.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that just because you're vocal doesn't mean to say you're a captain. I know that's going to sound really strange, but the players will know who they look up to more than anyone because you can be a silent captain as well. You can be someone that you've got to go ahead shouting his Oliver in from the centre backs, and the midfielders just wanting to shut up because I don't like him. That sort of thing. That's the kind of thing that a team, who's the captain, who's going to lead you from the front, rather than a loudmouth from the left wing or something like that. That's.
It'll be the first time for a long time that we'll have a captain that hasn't come through the academy.
No, it's true. Yeah.
My big worry is that Nick is right. Actually, that he'll just give it to.
Don't say he's right.
It's going to be.
He loves him.
He's going to be Souček.
Well, if you look at it from a David Moyes perspective, that would make sense. He loves the player. He plays every game. He's been here long enough to be given the armband. It would not surprise me, and probably
he runs 500 kilometers a game and touches the ball twice.
I ain't being funny though. Do you know what? I could never take him seriously with his voice. Like if he's shouting at me on the pitch, I'll be like, I'll just be laughing at him all the time. I think people in the chat are saying Soufal. I love the way Soufal's come back. From almost being sold in January. I think he's been brilliant, but I'm not sure.
I think we need to improve. I think we need to improve at right back.
Well, you think we need to improve everywhere? We always need to improve.
Right back, I think we do. Right back, I think we do. He's not getting any younger. You need pace. I don't think there's longevity. I don't think it's a position where players can go on forever at fullback.
No.
It'll be interesting to see what Moyes does. It's obviously a big decision, but we'll see how it goes. Listeners, we're going to leave it there.
Can I ask you one more question before you go?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
This is one question. One more
thing. Show is this?
No, what? I'll ask you.
Luke, we're all friends here. We're all friends.
We're not friends. Me and him
I'll
ain't
ask you
friends.
first. Because it just pops into my head. So Declan Rice leaves. Now, Declan Rice is a worldwide superstar now. We know that. Everybody knows who Declan Rice is. I think it's safe to say that Declan Rice does give West Ham probably a bit more profile. Do we think that West Ham as a club lose something in terms of their attraction?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Do you think we lose something when Declan Rice goes?
Yeah. To an extent, yeah. England international, looked at by the top clubs, worth 100 million. It's like Bellingham leaving Dortmund, but Dortmund have already got that status, I suppose. So that's not really the same thing. We are making a name for ourselves based on our European, winning a trophy. That's done it for ourselves anyway. If Rice had scored in that final, it would have been all on him probably because Rice has done all. Rice has done one. But You are right, but to an extent, I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that we've got a clean slate for ourselves and we can build our own name rather than just say this is kind of what I was kind of getting with a few people that when Rice leaves, he's your main player, he's your only player, he's carried you as West Ham. I've heard that from a few fans that are not West Ham fans, right? And to an extent,
no, he actually has. And would we have done anything like what we've done without him?
I reckon we would have won a Conference League regardless.
Oh mate, we wouldn't have been in it in the first fucking place.
Yeah, I don't think he's when he has. There's a few games he hasn't played as well in the last few years through injury or whatever. I think we've got 100% record when he hasn't played.
Oh, you know what? You know what Luke's going to say in a minute. He's going to say when Rice don't play, Soucek's better. That's what he's going to say.
Of course he looks better without a good player next to him.
I
ain't got a point of reference.
If I said that, I apologise. But I think we are going to lose something, but we might gain something as well when we do, because we don't need the eyes of the world on us all the time. Thinking we're Rice is Mr. West Ham and Rice carries West Ham. Even if it is true, it'd be nice to know that we can make when he leaves.
Oh, Luke don't like Rice, does he? Not player of the year.
No.
He's rubbish.
Do you think if Paqueta builds on what he did the second part of last season, he could fill that void?
Oh, 100%. Oh, sorry. So I think it's
no.
Shut up there. Bye.
Yeah, but the problem is they'll always look. The midfield will all listen. We've got to get used to this. The midfield will always look weaker without Rice in it. Now, no matter who we bring in, this is the problem. We're going to have to concede.
Even Paqueta will struggle without Rice behind him. He will.
Yeah, because you play with better players, you get better. Iron sharpens iron. Blah blah blah. So,
well, we've got to get this transfer window absolutely spot on. But yeah, I think you do lose a little bit of profile. I think it helps that we won the Conference League. I think a lot of we were very kind of visual for people all over Europe, really, and for players included last season. They know we're in the Europa League this season. Obviously, everybody knows Paqueta now. Just class. Yeah. So I think Paqueta, as you say, will help to fill that void if he starts next season. The way he ended this season. I think
when a team gets into the Champions League, they say they can attract players because you're in the Champions League. Do you think in the Europa League, because you're in that, you can attract players?
Yeah, not the same caliber of player.
Yeah.
But
different
you
level.
can to say the next tier of player down. You can offer them. You say, look, we've been in Europe the last 3 seasons in a row. We won the Conference League, as you know, because you were probably watching it. We've won a European trophy. We're in the Europa League. Our aim is to go out and win that this season. We have increased our profile as a club. I think there's no doubt about it. We're better known, I think, to fans certainly around Europe, but also to players. And also, we're a Premier League club. Let's not forget that. That's the Premier League in and of itself.
That's what I think we should be doing, going abroad, because I think we can be a gateway, an attractive club for players that want to come and ply their trade in the Premier League. That's what we should be doing, going for that market.
Yeah, so I think we definitely still, despite the poor season in the league, I think we still will have a lot of pull with a certain level of player, particularly young players who are still just on the way up, who are looking for that next kind of gateway club to really showcase themselves in the best league in the world. We can offer them that, and that's what we need to be selling: European football and a chance to put yourself in the biggest shop window possible. We can attract very, very good players.
Yeah, and also we've got some of the best West Ham YouTubers, i.e. Irish Tommy and French Luke.
Yeah, French Luke. Yeah, he won't show his face because he ain't stopped eating all night.
Yeah, why are you not showing your face, Luke? What's happening?
I reckon he's got a massive spot. He's got a massive spot at the end of his fucking nose. Massive. Big pussy fucking spot he's got.
A big Thomas Soucek size spot on his nose.
Nick's saying that with a face that he's got. Jesus Christ, that's cheeky, isn't it?
Truth is, Luke's been breastfeeding the entire show. So.
I reckon a Man United fan chinned him, and he's got a shiner because they mistook him for David De Gea. They've had enough of him.
Right, just to clarify, these bastards. The main reason why I'm a numpty.
Don't swear, Luke. Don't swear. Don't swear.
I've misplaced my webcam. That is why. So I'm working with a bit of a dodgy laptop that doesn't work anymore properly.
I
so
before, mate.
I have to. Well, you'd hear it again, even more. Shut up. That's the reason why. And to be honest with you, the amount of bloody things I've been doing on this camera, eating and giving you the finger and all that, like you glad I haven't been had a camera on me all night.
Sorry, what sort of YouTube channel are you used to on giving each other the finger?
Give me the finger.
Anyway, love you. I've just been eating my noodles. I've been having my time with life, drinking my beer and all that. Listening to this waffle.
One more look. Out of 10, one is no chance. 10 is yes. What are the chances of West Ham literally next season having an amazing season? Right? I'll go John first. Out of 10, 1 being no chance, 10 being it will happen.
What do you count them? Your
top six. Top six. And
six. No chance. No chance.
Well, no.
One.
So what?
Top six? Are you kidding?
Well, so you're saying 1? So you think we're going to get relegated?
No, of getting in the top 6, you numpty.
All right. Well, look. Well, let's change the rate. So 1 is relegation battle. 10 is
mid-table, mid-table, 12th, 13th.
So you reckon a 5? You reckon a 5 out of 10?
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Tom?
I agree with Verge. I don't think we're going to get top 6. I think there are just too many other clubs that are better than us, or at least they've got a better manager, frankly.
Nasty.
And well, there are. I'm sorry. It's just that there are easily 6 clubs that will finish ahead of us next season. Sorry.
Of course. I don't know where Nick come out of top 6 from, really.
Yeah. So
why not?
I think
that would be amazing. Would that not be an amazing season if we got top 6?
Yes, you know why? So therefore, you should appreciate the last 2 seasons when we did come 7th.
About to say that. Just about to say that.
We do appreciate it. We're just look. There's 2 separate issues here. Look, I think we'll finish in the bottom half of the table again.
That's backfired on me. That's stupid.
Yeah. I think we'll finish bottom half of the table, and I don't believe that we'll be able to win the Europa League.
No.
So I don't see that happening. I think we could do very well in it. It'll depend on the draw in the knockout phase, who we get. We
top seeded, didn't we? We top seeded, so we avoid some of the big ones.
You look at the teams that are in. Would you fancy us in the knockout? Look, I think we'll get through the group, but would you fancy us in the knockout round if we end up, drawing? Can we draw?
As it stands, no. As it stands, we wouldn't go very far in the Europa as it stands, but it all depends on what investment they make.
You've got Juventus and Liverpool and Brighton.
Easy. I don't know what you're worried about, Tommy.
And I think we'll finish bottom half. So I think our season actually will be quite underwhelming, if I'm completely honest. I think it will be mediocre in the league, around maybe somewhere between 10th and 12th in the league.
Mate, that being said, James Allen just asked a question: will Moyes survive all season? Would you say he will last to the end of the season or Christmas? You think he will?
If we,
well, he survived all this season, I suppose. So that's me talking at me arse, maybe.
This is true. Yeah.
But then the Europa League is going to be harder than the Conference League, so I would say no. Unless we drop into the Conference League again, which means that he will stay. To
answer your question, Nick, sorry, I put a number on it because I know you asked for a 1 to 10. I think probably 5. I think we'll be mediocre in the league and we'll get to
I'd probably say the
less
same.
16 or a quarter final of Europa, depending on what our draw is in the knockout phase.
I wish I would have done this conversation before I renewed my season ticket today. Fuck yeah, no, bothered.
Oh yeah, and the football will be shit, Verge.
You know what? I got an email after I renewed my season ticket today. I got an email saying, "Don't worry, the renewal deadline has been extended."
That's good.
They never do that every season, do they? No. They never do that every season.
No. All right, I'm putting this out, doom and gloom. If you want to be realistic, what do you think? Doom and gloom. How is between 10th and 12th and getting to maybe quarter-final of the Europa League? Doom and gloom. That's probably, in my opinion, what will likely happen.
I
want Kate to tell us right now what position we'll finish in the Premier League and how far we'll get in the Europa League.
Kate thinks it
was quite a good finish.
Cape's a little bit like me as well. I mean, I've gone the other way now, but Cape thinks that we're going to keep hold of Declan Rice, and I've been feeling like that up until this last week, and now I don't. I have seen the video, Cape, the one where he's speaking to the kids and that, but he's not going to go when he's being videoed.
Oh, the one where he's put on the spot. Oh, you're going to beat West Ham next year, and he goes, "Yeah, oh yeah, that one, yeah."
And I get that. I get that, but he's not going to tell kids that he wants to leave and stuff, is he? He's not going to do that.
Not going to tell anybody.
Listen, at the end of the day, if he wanted to stay, he would have signed the contract, wouldn't he? He ain't signed the contract.
Why do you think about the contract though?
If he wanted to stay here long term, he would have signed the contract.
Yes,
that might be an old
contract
video.
means nothing. He still could have been sold at any time through a contract or not.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is, if he wanted to stay here long term, like on West Ham, then he would sign a contract to keep himself here. Is what I'm trying to say.
I like the fact that he saved the club 10 million quid. I think he deserves a pat on the back for that.
Yeah. I know.
Just saying.
Yeah.
I know.
Shut up, Luke. Luke, someone give Luke set up a crowdfund to get a new camera. Fucking
go and get a big needle and fucking squeeze that boil on the end of your nose, mate. Lance it. Get some foundation. Get some foundation from your missus. Sort your nose out.
All right, folks, we're going to leave it there. Appreciate you all joining me.
Didn't even get to answer my question. Didn't even get to answer that question.
Go on. Just let him answer the question. Come on.
No, not doing it.
Come on, please. Speak, Gonzo. Come and tell us.
It's fine. No, cheers. No, sweet. Yeah.
Right, jump on next week, Luke, and you can ask. I'll give you.
Not gonna be next week.
Questions if you want.
No, if these two Muppets are on. No, if these two wankers are on. Claret and
Thanks to everybody in the chat. Appreciate you joining us as always, and hopefully you can join us again next week. Going to be an interesting summer with transfers. We'll see what happens there. Hopefully we can get it right. But until next week, everybody, come on, you are.